Now, I've had a few comments and questions from people asking me to build a wildcard draft for Game Week 34. And if you're on your wildcard this week, well, I've got a draft for you. Well, if you're on your wildcard in Game Week 34, you're going to have to do so, or you're going to have to pick players thinking about fixtures, right? So what we've got here, and we will... Well, going into Game Week 34, we won't know the outcome. But I'm guessing after Game Week 34 finishes, we will know what teams double in 36. And obviously, subsequently, blank in 37. If you can get through this week without using it, I think I would, because I just really value the information going into it. But regardless, I think if you're in a position where perhaps you don't have your free hit, used it earlier on in the season or whatever, that's ultimately why you're playing your wildcard, right? And I think I'd focus, obviously, on Game Week 34. You can't pick players. Well, you can only pick a maximum of 4 players that blank in Game Week 34, because you could put all 4 of those players on your bench. So you could have a goalkeeper that blanks, potentially 2 defenders and a forward, or 2 defenders and a midfielder, something like that. That could be the way that you play it. And then we're looking ahead to Game Week 36, and the teams that will double in 36 are the ones that make the FA Cup final plus their opponents, and they'll blank in Game Week 37 as a result. And what we've got here is a fixture grid courtesy of Ben Crellin. Obviously, I've used it already to explain to you what the fixtures look like. And what Ben has kindly done is attached a percentage probability, depending on the odds of teams winning in those FA Cup semi-finals. He's converted that to a percentage, and that gives you the odds of these respective teams having a double in Game Week 36, right? So we've got Aston Villa 59%, Man City 43%, Crystal Palace 17%, Tottenham 59%, Bournemouth 43%, Wolves, Nottingham Forest and West Ham also on 17%. So that gives you a little overview of the fixtures. Probability of doubles in 36. Obviously, those teams that double in 36, you're going to have to do something about them in Game Week 37. Probably going to want to use transfers to get rid of them, for example. I would say if I had my free hit available, I'd use it this week, and then deal with it deal with it with free transfers in 37. But I guess, and if you're wildcard in, well, let me know actually if you're on your wildcard, if you already used your free hit. But anyway, that's the fixtures. Should give you an idea of the teams you might want to select from based upon that. All right, I'm going to start off with the goalkeepers and defenders then, and this is a starting 11. So I can see there I picked 3 players on my bench, all of them from Man City, because I think Guardiola, De Bruyne and Marmoush are really decent options for the run-in. Man City, and I think this is a key theme across the wildcard draft, you're probably, in the main, going to be wanting to pick players from teams with things to play for. They've either a good team with good fixtures or still have something to play for. I've gone for Wolves. I've gone for, there's a few Wolves, maybe a couple Wolves players in this team. I've gone for Aït-Nouri just purely for the ease of the fixture and the fact I really like him from an attacking perspective. And then I've gone for double Forest defence because they've been reliable for me this season. And Forest, they'll be playing kind of till the bitter end, really fighting for those Champions League spots. The same sort of applies to Newcastle as well. And I've just got a feeling that Bournemouth are kind of battling, I guess, for, European spots. I've got a feeling they won't really let off the gas either. So you've kind of all got teams to play for there. And I'd say certainly Forest, Newcastle and Bournemouth on their day can keep a clean sheet against pretty much anyone. I'd say Wolves, not necessarily so strong defensively as the other team, but they do obviously have the potential double in Game Week 36. And you can see the teams or the players that do have a potential double, what Fantasy Football Hub has done with their expected points is correlated that to their likelihood of a double game week, if that makes sense. So you see some of these players with a double in 36 and their expected points is a little bit inflated as a result. So yeah, that's a view of the defence. I've gone for Neco Williams there because, well, I think he's better, well, he's cheaper than Milenkovic, basically. I think if you can afford to get Milenkovic in this team, what I've tried to do is put together a wildcard draft that absolutely anyone, regardless of the budget they have available, absolutely anyone can pick this team. But I think if money was no object, I would probably go for Milenkovic because I do think he is just a little bit better from an attacking perspective with his danger from set pieces and possibly bonus points wise as well. And likewise, if this team is too expensive for you, you could drop Kerkez. I really like Kerkez for how attacking he is. But if you need to, you could drop him to Housen, someone like that. I think Housen is 4.5, 4.6. You can even go for Zabani, who's a little bit cheaper even still. But yeah, I think the rest of the defence is pretty solid. Yeah, that would be my starting back 5 and that would be the bench. I'd probably go for Areola. I think he's just the cheapest starting goalkeeper in the game, so he's always there as a bench option if you need him. And I really like the look of Man City. I don't think they're going to turn a corner by any stretch of the imagination. I still think they're not going to be playing to the level they have in seasons gone by, but I just think they're going to be motivated to try and qualify for the Champions League. Guardiola, he's got 3 centre-backs, I think, that are fit now around him. Kuzanov, well, there's some rumours that he fell out with Pep Guardiola recently. Kanji's back in the fray. Diaz too. I think that could push Guardiola to kind of that inverted left-back position where he just gets in ridiculous attacking positions. Kevin De Bruyne is obviously the end of his career at Man City. Surely that's going to motivate him to try and play as well as he possibly can. And obviously for that Champions League qualification. And well, with Haaland out of the picture, Marmoush is going to be kind of the talisman up front. So I think you've got to go for him as well, particularly considering, of course, I think they're likely to double in 36. All right, onto the midfield. So I've gone for Salah, Mbeumo, Kluivert, and Bowen. And I've got to say, I think quite a lot of these options kind of speak for themselves, really. Salah and Mbeumo have been 2 of the best midfielders in the game by quite a margin this season. Mbeumo hit 200 points just last week. Salah has broken the FPL point scoring record. I think he did it in game week 31, something like that. He did it a little while ago, way before the season was finishing anyway. So yeah, Salah's already broken this point score record. I think you've got to go for him. The only thing I would say about Salah is he has, I don't know. I don't think it's coming. I don't think it's anything to do with the new contract, or it might be. But his form has dipped a little bit, and he's not been quite as dangerous as in recent games as he was at the start of the season. So just one thing to bear in mind with Salah. But I don't think you can pick an FPL team without going for Salah. I think you'd be really brave not to pick him. Mbeumo, I'm not massively excited about that fixture against Forest away, and I'm also doubled up, as you can see there, on the Forest defence. So that's kind of a little bit counterproductive, but it is for just 1 week. You know, when you're playing your wild card, you're doing it basically for the rest of the season. I'm picking Mbeumo because I think for the rest of the season, he's going to play really well and score lots of points. And the next couple of fixtures after Forest away, well, they're Man United at home and Ipswich away, and I think that's a couple of good fixtures. Speaking of Man United at home, that's who Kluivert has next, which I think is a really decent fixture to target. Obviously, decent chance of a double game week as well in 36, Villa and Man City. 2 teams, by the way, I think he can score against. And also come back from a bit of injury, obviously his baby being born as well, which did the rounds on Twitter. I think he's still the best Bournemouth asset in the game. You know, he's going to be on penalties up until, well, he was in really good form, and I think the manager really likes him. So he's got good minutes coming up. He's in, I think the best Bournemouth asset you can pick. So yeah, really like him as an option. And I've also gone for Jarrod Bowen as well. Now, there are other midfielder alternatives. I'll talk about them towards the end of the video, actually. But with Jarrod Bowen, you just get someone who's just tried and trusted. I like the Brighton fixture. I like the Tottenham fixture. And there is a small chance of a double game week in 36 as well. And the one thing you just know about Bowen, even under Graham Potter, might not necessarily play the full 90, but he's just going to play every single game. And despite not necessarily being on penalties, I think it's still Paquetá that is. He's still going to be kind of the focal point of that West Ham attack. And actually, I quite like the kind of partnership that he's forming with Füllkrug. So, yeah, that would be, you can see De Bruyne is on my bench as well. But starting wise for Game Week 34, that would be my midfield 4. Up front then, and for me, the other 2 strikers alongside Marmoush are not that hard to pick. I think you've got to go for Isak. He's similar to kind of Salah. He's dipped in form in recent games, but he's got Ipswich at home in Game Week 34, followed by Brighton away. I think he's probably still the best forward in the game. Yeah, like the fixtures, staying fit. I just don't think you can't not pick Isak, in my opinion. And then Cunha's the other forward, absolute talisman of Wolves. There is a little bit of worry that WILDCARD could potentially displace him from the starting 11 when he returns. And also, Cunha has been really heavily linked to Man United this week as well. Whether that impacts, is it Vitor Pereira, the Wolves manager? I'm pretty sure that's his name. Whether that impacts his decision-making in terms of his 11, I guess we'll find out. And I would be a little bit concerned, going into Game Week 34 if there was a bit of lack of security on his minutes, I suppose, because, well, there's no bench to this team. But, so I think the one rule is if you're going to have a bench like this, you've got to pick an 11 that are absolutely guaranteed to start. I think Cunha is, but there's a little bit of risk that it could be WILDCARD. But to be honest, I don't see why you wouldn't pick him. Again, slim chance of a double in Game Week 36, Leicester at home in 34, then Man City away. I know I know I picked Guardiola on the team, but Man City have not been the strongest team defensively this season, so I don't think you can rule out Cunha doing something. So yeah, that would be the 11 on a wildcard 34. And then just to complete the team, in Game Week 34, according to Fantasy Football Hub, this team has 62.9 expected points, gets a 92% AI rating just for this game week. It's not obviously not the optimal team for Game Week 34 in isolation, but it's a wildcard team. So you're building your wildcard team for the rest of the season. I think this team is optimal for the rest of the season. It might not be quite as strong as some of the teams that people, naturally, that some of the people are putting together on a free hit. One thing I guess you could do, if you do have transfers in hand, you could potentially, you know, pick a different bench, if that makes sense. Or you could pick players that are playing on your bench, and maybe you could go for a 3 at the back formation. To be honest, I think this team will suit you pretty well. So yeah, if I was wildcarding in Game Week 34, I think I'd pick something like this. And then just to round off the video, I just thought it'd be fair to shout out some other potential alternative options you could go for. So in goal, I picked up the Bournemouth, well, I think Bournemouth, couple of fixtures they've got coming up. Well, they got Arsenal, I guess, next, but Man United anyway, and then you could maybe pick Areola. I don't mind Kepa as a goalkeeper. Don't mind Nick Pope either. I think Sales is my favourite, but I don't mind either of those two. If you want to save a bit of cash on Kirkez, you could go for Howson. I spelled it wrong, I just realised. We're gonna roll with it. You could also go for Cucurella, who I think has got reasonably solid minutes for the rest of the season. Gonna be relatively attacking, and Chelsea are gonna have something to play for right until the end. You could go for Jacob Murphy too, the Forest midfield trio. Now, all of those teams are gonna have something to fight for as well. You could go for Semenyo too. I just prefer Cliver and the other players that I've picked. I'd worry about Murphy's minutes with the form that Barnes has been in, well, long term in terms of minutes till the rest of the season. With the form that Barnes is in and the fact that Gordon's back, I just think Bowen and Bumo probably better than the 3 Forest midfielders. And then Cliver, I think, just has the edge on Semenyo. Plenty of strikers you could go for. Strand Larson, Wisser, Evan Nilsson, Jackson. I really like Nicholas Fulkrug, so I'm going to mention him every opportunity. And Raul Jimenez as well. But he will, I think, when Muniz is back, 2 of them will obviously share minutes. So I think probably those top 3 strikers on that list are the ones that I would consider. Nicholas Jackson just a bit too out of form for me. But yeah, I'm just showing some alternative picks that I could think of off the top of my head. But yeah, if there are any others, please let me know in the comments. All right, well, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. Like I said, there were a fair few comments on my streams and videos asking for me to put together a wildcard draft for 34. So yeah, hopefully you found this useful. And if you did, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like rating on the video. Subscribe to the Goal and Goal channel, which should be around there on your screen. And yeah, I think that's everything. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you in my next video.